This is Dennis Wing with your Friday Rhythm Games. This is a part 2 to creative rhythm guitar parts video that I made a few weeks ago because I feel like I didn't go far enough. You know, when I run a jam session, which I do regularly at the public library, all the students sound like this. So everyone's playing the same rhythm, like dan, 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 like that standard guitar strum, and they're completely oblivious to the possibilities that could exist if everyone just had sort of a slightly different part, and the parts all contributed to the whole. So part 1, we talked about how guitarists typically, first of all, they'll strum these big chords and not leave any sonic space really for other instruments. And more importantly for this video is the rhythmic side of it. Like they're oblivious to the fact that every part can have its own rhythm and contribute to a greater whole. So this is why I wrote this article called Interlocking Rhythms, and I'm going to walk you through it. Now I prefer this type of notation versus standard notation because not everyone reads music, and I also want to map out things visually in a way that standard notation doesn't always give. So guitar 1 in this case is playing 1, 2, 3, 4, gang, 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 okay? And then guitar 2, recognizing that there's some holes, can play wherever guitar 1 is not playing. Like guitar 1, there's no X under the end of 1, nor is there one under the third beat, or the end of 4. So guitar 2 is playing 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3, and 3, and in the following example, which I recorded, where on one side the guitar 1 is playing the big fat chords, guitar 2 is playing in the holes with smaller chords, smaller, more choppy chords. So at least that kind of fits together, and it sounds like this. Now suppose in example 2 that guitar 1 realizes that, you know, it was hogging up a lot of space and reduces its number of hits from 5, which it had up here, to 4, which it'll have here, like 1 and 4 and 1 and 4 and. Let's just suppose that's guitar 1 now. And then there's more holes to fill. Now I'm not saying that, you know, it has to be like this, that you have to figure out in advance, okay, you play on this beat and this beat and this beat. It's not going to be like that in real life. But I'm just using this as a gateway to explore possibilities, you know, of really listening to the other musicians' parts. And I'm not saying you have to avoid whatever beats, that you can't play on the same beats. That would be ridiculous. But you are listening and trying to contribute something to the whole. I keep saying the same thing over and over. So here we go. The guitar 1 is playing 1 and 4 and 1, and then guitar 2 and 2, 3 and 2, 3 and. And if you put both of them together, it sounds like this. Now, example 3 is like a shuffle using G7 and C7. And these numbers down here mean like the intervals, like a guitar is playing a root in a fifth and then a root in a sixth, like that old classic blues thing, like like that in the key of G. And so there's very few holes that are left there. But for guitar 2, which is playing only the 3rd and 7th, which is something I referenced in part 1 of the video, part 1, is playing only the 3rd and 7th on the second part of each triplet, like 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a ga, 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 which is often a neglected part of the triplet in the shuffle groove in the West. In other forms of music, like African music or Afro-Cuban 6/8, which we're going to get to in a little while, the second beat can be accented. And anyway, the whole example sounds like this. Now, suppose guitar 1 doesn't play chords at all. It just plays intervals. The definition of a chord is more than one note being played at the same time. And if it's only playing one note at a time, but other instruments are playing different notes at the same time, and if it's playing only one note at a time, but other instruments in the ensemble are playing other notes at the same time, then technically chords are being emanated from the band without any one particular person playing a chord. And it's a big sound. It can be a bigger sound than if one instrument is hogging up all the space and the other ones are trying to fit in. So in this particular example, the guitar 1 plays 1 7 3 3 7 1 7 3 7 1, something like that in some of the holes, and overlap with guitar 1 some of the time, because like I said, you don't have to be so precise about this stuff. You can overlap beats, it's totally fine. But not only is guitar 2 going to strategically position itself around that kind of, but it's going to play other intervals, the 5th and the 9th, like 1 2 3 4 5, and then da 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 9, so 5 and 9, or like go gang gong gang gong gong gang gong gang gong, something like that. Here's what it sounds like together. And one of the most classic examples of interlocking rhythms is in Afro-Cuban music. We're going to take a 2-3 rumba clave. I'll explain if you're not familiar with what that is. And we're going to talk about how the rhythms work. So it's all in 4/4, so rhythm 1 just plays on the 1 and 3, like 1 2 3 4, 1 3 1 3. And then rhythm 2 is the actual clave pattern. Rumba, it's 2-3 rumba clave. It's called 2-3 because there's 2 hits in the first bar and 3 hits on the second bar. So it sounds like this: 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 and 2 3 1 and. And then while those two are playing, there's what's called the cascara pattern, which it's like a further extension of the clave pattern. Like all the hits of the clave are in this pattern. If you look, like there's the 2 and the 3, and it's got all the ones we just did, but it also has some extra notes. So the whole pattern sounds like this: 1 2 3 4, 1 2 3 and 1 2 and 1 2 3 and 1 2 and. And then there's the bombo note, and the bombo note is every other bar. So that's why this first bar is blank, and the second bar only has the and of 2. So it sounds like 1 2 3 4 1 and 1 2 3 4 1 2 and. And finally we get the tumbao, which is like what a conga would play, and it sounds like this: 1 2 3 4 and 3 4 and 4 and. Now, if you're in a group of 5 different people, every person can play a different part from A to E, and it's quite fun and challenging, you'll find, to get it right, which is why Afro-Cuban music is not an easy music to play. If one person gets off, it's like a tightrope effect, and it throws everyone else off, or it can. So, but in lieu of having 6 guitarists play, I decided to have, I just did 2 bars of A minor and 2 bars of E7. And guitar 1 plays the pulse plus the bombo note and tumbao. So in other words, letters A, D, and E above. And it all looked like this, and I played that all at the same time. Guitar 2 would play the cascara and the clave parts together, each on different strings. And putting it all together, it sounds like this. Version B now is 3/2 clave. So instead of gang, it gets reversed. So let me walk you through that. Again, the guitar part A is just the pulse, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 1, 3, and then B part is the clave, which is 3, 2 now, 3, 2 rumba clave, like 1, 2, 3, 4, gang, 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 1 and 2, 3. So, and then the cascada pattern is just like these other parts. It's the inverse of what it was, the reverse of what it was from 2, 3. Gang, 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 gang. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, and. And then the bombo note is, last time it was on bar 2, now it's on bar 1. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, and. So that's all the bombo note is. And then the last one is the tumbao itself, which is again on the end of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 and 4 and. Okay, so in order to do this with 2 guitars, I had guitar 1 play the bombo, the pulse plus the bombo and tumbao, and guitar 2 played the cascada and clave, and put that all together and it sounds like this. So there's 2 points I'm making here. Number 1, if you actually dig into these examples and play them, you'll find that it takes some coordinating, but it's well worth the payoff. Like the payoff for rhythmic creativity is infinite if you put in the work. Too many guitarists they're just oblivious that the potential is there in the first place, and secondly, they may not want to put in the work. But it's way rewarding. I mean, if 2 guitarists can play like that, think of what a room full of 5 or 6 guitarists could do if they put their mind to it. And even more realistically, when you go to your band rehearsal, let's say it's 2 guitars, keyboard, bass, and drums, and everyone is just slogging out like rhythms, oblivious to each other. But imagine you could all work out parts and the whole thing. You've heard bands that sound amazing, even though any one specific part might not be so intricate or complicated or something. It's very simple traditionally because it's giving the other instruments the opportunity to play their simple parts, but the whole thing together sounds like it's wonderful matrix. There's thousands of examples of this. I'm not going to go into detail on this, but what I am going to do next is talk about the Afro-Cuban 6/8. And the reason I'm going to talk about that is because it's related to a shuffle groove. And I have a lot of videos on this. You can check them out at a different time. The relationship between Afro-Cuban 6/8 and playing a shuffle or even jazz swing. And there's videos I have where I take specific clave patterns and move them in different parts of the bar and put them in a jazz standard and in a blues tune. And I have articles on this. I've been writing about this and demonstrating this for a while. So it's one of my favorite topics. Let's look at some Afro-Cuban. Now, I have to say, even though this is 6/8, I'm representing it in 4/4 so I can show the relationship between this and a regular shuffle groove. In other words, a shuffle groove, if you play, that's 4/4. But you could count count it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, or even like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1. There's all these different ways of looking at the same thing. You could call it 12/8 if you wanted to. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1. So you could represent it in 4, or you can even do 3, like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. And so whether you write it in 4 or 3 or 12 or 6, it's all relative depending on what your purposes are. But right now I'm going to represent it in 4, and the pulse itself is just the 1, 2, 3, 4 as shown here. And then the side stick pattern would be 1, 2, 3, 4, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, uh, 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 okay? And then we get to the clave pattern itself, which is like, this is like the Afro-Cuban bell pattern, like ding, 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 the 1, and 4, 1, and 4, 1. The mid time would be 1, 2, 3, and 3, and 3, and then the low tom would have the same thing, but on the 4 and the end of 4. So, and then the low tom would be like 1, 2, and okay. So exploring all those and then assigning different notes to each one, different tracks. And guitar 1 would play the interval of the, like, let's say if it's a G7, it would play the actual G note on beats 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then guitar 2 plays the side stick pattern on the 5th of the chord. And then I think I did an octave of the one on the clave pattern for guitar 3. And then for the mid tom pattern, I had the guitar playing a 7, and then the low tom pattern, I had it doing a 3, and it would sound all like this. Even though I think these specific examples are good for you to dive into and explore exactly as I've written them, and explore playing different parts and try looping them, and it takes a bit of coordinating. Even though that may be true that I believe you should do that, if you don't do that, hopefully at least you take away the potential that leaving space for other musicians, number one, and what you play is deliberately trying to enhance the whole and not just being oblivious, and playing a strum because you've always done it in your living room. It's a strum of ding, 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 ding. It's going to be fine when it's just you. But just because you've been doing it that way for decades doesn't mean that you should be doing that in an ensemble situation. So I hope this helps, and I look forward to hearing you play with a lot more rhythmic, let's just call it intentionality.